They say time heals all wounds, but what about the fire that rises instantly? The one that makes your hands tremble and your heart race. Not years later, but in the exact moment someone hurts you, disrespects you, or speaks words that feel like a blade. Anger is something we've all felt, but so few of us truly understand. And yet, understanding it deeply, honestly, might be the very thing that sets us free from it forever. If you've ever wondered why people get under your skin, or why it's so hard to stay calm when someone pushes your buttons, I invite you to stay with me until the end of this chapter. The wisdom we're about to explore, rooted in the ancient teachings of the Buddha, might just change the way you experience life. If even one sentence speaks to your heart, I ask you to like this video, leave a comment about what connected with you the most, and subscribe to the channel. Your voice matters, and your healing journey is part of a much bigger circle. The Buddha taught that anger does not arise from the outside. It is not caused by another person's insult, or by the traffic jam, or by being misunderstood. Anger, he said, is born within us, from a mind that clings, a heart that resists, and an ego that believes it must always be right. It is not the situation that causes our suffering, but our resistance to the situation. In Buddhist teachings, this fire of aversion is fueled by our own ignorance, our lack of awareness of how the mind works. I want to tell you a story the Buddha once shared with his disciples. A young man came to him, overwhelmed with rage. He felt betrayed, disrespected by someone he trusted. "Master," he said, "how do I make this anger go away? It is eating me from the inside." The Buddha, in his calm and steady voice, replied, "Let me tell you a story." He spoke of a villager who had received a magnificent horse as a gift. It was the most beautiful creature he had ever seen. But one morning the horse was gone, vanished. The man exploded with anger. He blamed his neighbors, shouted at his family, and spent days accusing people without proof. His mind was on fire with suspicion. Days later, a traveler returned the horse. It had simply wandered off and was found grazing by the forest. The man was flooded with guilt. He had broken bonds, wounded people, and for what? For a story his anger wrote in his mind. The Buddha paused and looked into the eyes of the young man. Was the fire of his anger useful to him? "No," the disciple whispered. "Did it bring the horse back any faster?" "No, Master." The Buddha smiled gently. "Then remember this. Holding on to anger is like holding a burning coal with the intention of throwing it at someone else. But in the end, you are the one who gets burned." That story may be centuries old, but the truth it holds is timeless. Think about it. When was the last time your anger actually helped you? When did it solve the problem? When did it bring you peace? For most of us, the answer is it didn't. Anger promises power, but it delivers destruction. It disguises itself as strength, but it feeds on our pain, our fear, our past wounds. So what can we do when we feel that fire rising? The Buddhist path is not about denying our feelings or pretending to be calm. It's about awareness, gentle, compassionate awareness. When you feel anger building, instead of reacting, try to pause. Close your eyes even just for a second and breathe. Ask yourself, what part of me feels threatened right now? What expectation did I have that reality is not meeting? You'll begin to see that the fire was never outside of you. It was always within, and therefore so is the power to put it out. This isn't easy, especially when you've spent years, maybe decades, believing that other people are responsible for your emotions. But this is your turning point. This is where peace begins, not when the world changes, but when you do. The more you understand your own mind, the less control others will have over it. The less you take personally, the freer you become. The Buddha didn't offer quick fixes. He offered a path, a way of walking through life with more awareness, less reactivity, and deeper compassion. And that path begins by seeing anger not as your enemy, but as your teacher. Because once you understand its message, you no longer need to carry it. If this story or this lesson spoke to your heart, share your thoughts in the comments. What has anger taken from you in the past? And what might life feel like if you let it go? Have you ever wondered why certain people seem to get under your skin so easily? Why someone's words or actions, even when small, can stir up so much emotion inside you? It feels personal, almost like they know exactly where to press. But what if they're not triggering you because of who they are, but because of what's already inside you? The Buddha taught that the outside world is a mirror. What we react to in others is often a reflection of what we haven't yet understood or healed within ourselves. That sting of anger or resentment, it's rarely about the other person. It's a signal, a doorway to deeper self-awareness. There's a story about a monk who was once slapped by a drunk man while walking through a village. The people nearby expected the monk to retaliate or at least show anger. But the monk simply bowed his head and walked on. Later, a disciple asked, "Master, how could you let him disrespect you like that?" The monk replied, "If someone offers you a gift and you do not accept it, to whom does the gift belong?" The disciple paused, then said, "It still belongs to the one who tried to give it." The monk smiled. "Exactly. His anger is his burden, not mine." What we often forget is that our reaction is our responsibility. If someone's behavior stirs up something intense within us, that's a sacred opportunity, not to blame them, but to ask ourselves, why does this affect me so deeply? What wound is this touching? Maybe their arrogance reflects our own insecurities. Maybe their criticism feels familiar, echoing something a parent or teacher once said. Maybe their silence reminds us of abandonment. Whatever the reason, the trigger is never random. It's pointing to a part of us still longing for attention and healing. So the next time someone triggers you, instead of lashing out or shutting down, try pausing. Ask yourself, what is this situation trying to show me about myself? That pause, that moment of awareness is where transformation begins. You don't have to keep carrying the emotional baggage of the past into every conversation. You can meet each moment with clarity instead of confusion, with compassion instead of reactivity. And if this message helped you see someone, or yourself, a little differently, I'd love to know. Leave a comment, share your reflection, and don't forget to subscribe if you'd like more teachings like this. Because this journey, it's not just about understanding others, it's about finally understanding yourself. There's a moment we all dread when someone criticizes us. Could be a comment, a tone, a look. Even when we pretend it doesn't matter, deep down it stings. Why does it hurt so much? Why do the opinions of others hold so much power over our peace? According to Buddhist wisdom, suffering comes from attachment, not just to people or things, but also to identity. The more tightly we cling to the idea of who we think we are, the more painful it feels when someone challenges it. But if we loosen that grip, if we learn the art of detachment, criticism no longer wounds us. It simply passes through, like wind through an open window. There's a well-known story of the Buddha being insulted by a man who had traveled a great distance just to challenge him. The man hurled harsh words and accusations, hoping to provoke a reaction. But the Buddha remained still, unshaken. After the man finished, the Buddha said, If a person brings a gift to another and the other refuses to accept it, to whom does the gift belong? The man, puzzled, replied, to the one who offered it. Then, said the Buddha, I do not accept your gift of anger and insult. This level of detachment doesn't come from arrogance or indifference. It comes from understanding. When you know who you are, not your ego, not your reputation, but your true self, then the world's opinions become background noise. They no longer define you. The next time someone criticizes you, try to pause before reacting. Instead of asking, how dare they say that? Ask, is any part of this true? If yes, thank them for showing you something to grow from. If not, let it go like a leaf drifting down a stream. You don't need to carry it. Real strength isn't proving others wrong. It's knowing you don't need to. Let me know in the comments. Have you ever held onto someone's words for too long? And how would your life change if you could simply let them float away? We all want to be understood. We want others to see our side, to agree with our truth. And when they don't, when they challenge us, dismiss us, or believe something different, we feel that fire again. The need to prove ourselves, the need to be right. But Buddhism teaches us something radical. You don't need to be right to be at peace. You only need to let go of the ego that demands validation. There's a story of two monks who came across a flooded river. A woman stood at the edge, afraid to cross. The older monk gently carried her across, placed her down safely, and continued walking. Hours later, the younger monk, clearly agitated, finally said, "Why did you carry her? We're not supposed to touch women." The elder replied, "I put her down hours ago. Why are you still carrying her?" That's what ego does. It holds on. It argues in our head long after the conversation ends. It demands to be right, even if it costs us our peace. But imagine how light life could feel if you didn't need to win every argument. If you could smile and say, "You may be right," and move on. This isn't weakness, it's freedom. There's no peace in being right, but there is deep, lasting peace in being free. So the next time someone disagrees with you, try letting go. Watch how quickly the storm within you begins to settle. If this resonates, I'd love to hear your story. When did being right cost you peace? Let's talk about it in the comments. One of the most powerful teachings in Zen Buddhism comes from a story about a man rowing his boat down a foggy river. Suddenly, he sees another boat rushing straight toward him. He shouts, waves, and tries to steer away, but it's too late. The boats collide. He erupts in rage. Who is this fool? But when the fog clears, he sees the boat was empty. No one was ever in it. In that instant, his anger vanishes. This story is a metaphor. The Buddha taught that most of our anger comes from assuming others are intentionally harming us. We personalize everything, but often, like the empty boat, their actions have nothing to do with us. They are caught in their own fog, their own suffering, confusion, or unconsciousness. When someone snaps at you, forgets you, or says something unkind, consider this. Maybe their boat is empty. Maybe they're acting from habit, pain, or fear. Maybe it was never about you. This perspective doesn't excuse bad behavior, but it does free you from the unnecessary burden of taking things personally. And that freedom is priceless. So the next time someone bumps into your peace, pause and ask, is their boat empty? And if the answer is yes, let it pass. Steer your own boat with awareness and kindness. When life begins to shake, when people shout, when plans fall apart, our instincts urge us to tense, to react, to fight back. But the Buddha taught a different way, a path that leads through stillness, not struggle. Staying calm in the middle of chaos isn't about ignoring what's happening. It's about meeting it with awareness. Imagine standing in a river during a storm. The current pulls, the water rises. If you resist, if you flail, you're swept away. But if you plant your feet, lower your center, and breathe, you become one with the flow. You don't stop the storm, you outlast it. There's a story about a monk who meditated in the forest. One day, a wild elephant broke free from a nearby village. The animal charged through the trees toward the monk. Birds scattered. Monkeys screeched. But the monk didn't move. He simply sat, still as stone, breath slow and eyes soft. The elephant stopped just feet away. Its rage dissolved into confusion. Then it turned and walked away. Why didn't the monk run? Because he had spent years understanding that panic only feeds the storm. Calm, on the other hand, creates space, and in that space, wisdom arises. Not all storms can be avoided, but we can train our minds to stay grounded. When people around you are angry, when situations feel unfair, you can choose not to be pulled in. Breathe, step back, listen without reacting. Speak only when your words come from clarity, not emotion. The calm you carry is more powerful than any storm you face. There's a split second, a sacred pause between stimulus and response. Someone says something sharp. A mistake happens. Plan crumbles. And in that tiny moment, a choice appears. Will you react or respond? The Buddha taught that reactivity is like a spark meeting dry grass. It ignites instantly, spreading through the mind, consuming peace. But response, true response, comes from mindfulness. It's the act of choosing your words, your energy, your next step with awareness. A man once approached a Zen master, furious after losing a business deal. "I lost everything because of someone else's greed," he yelled. The master listened quietly, then handed the man a cup of tea. But instead of letting the man drink, he kept pouring until the tea spilled over and onto the man's lap. "What are you doing?" the man shouted. The master looked him in the eye. "You are like this cup, full to the brim. No room for peace, no room for clarity. First, we must empty." The story reminds us. Reacting is often just overflowing, letting old emotions, fears, and past pains spill into the present moment. Responding requires you to first settle, to empty out the heat, to breathe before you speak. You can practice this daily. When something triggers you, don't rush to reply. Sit with it. Feel the sensations in your body. Let them pass like clouds. Then, from a place of steadiness, speak. Move. Decide. In this small shift, from reaction to response, entire lives are transformed. Forgiveness is one of the most misunderstood teachings in Buddhism. It is not about saying what happened was okay. It is not about forgetting. Forgiveness is about freeing your heart from the weight it was never meant to carry. The Buddha once told his disciples, "Holding on to anger is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. When we refuse to forgive, we suffer, not them. The grudge grows inside us, taking space where peace could have lived." There is a parable of two monks who were imprisoned and beaten for many years. After their release, one monk was filled with bitterness. "I will never forgive them," he said. The other monk looked at him gently and said, "Then you are still their prisoner." Forgiveness is not weakness. It is strength. It is choosing to no longer be defined by pain. It is saying, "You may have hurt me, but I will not let that wound shape the rest of my life." Some wounds take time to heal, and that's okay. Start where you are. You don't have to force forgiveness, but you can begin by softening your grip, by wishing the other person peace even from afar. Not for them, for you. Your heart deserves the quiet that forgiveness brings, not because they deserve it, but because you do. We live most of our lives believing every thought that passes through our minds. I'm not good enough. They don't respect me. Things will never change. But the Buddha taught that thoughts are not truths. They are passing clouds, not the sky itself. You are not your thoughts. You are the one who sees them. A young monk once asked his teacher, "Why do I feel so overwhelmed by my mind?" The master took him to a river and handed him a leaf. "Drop it in," he said. The leaf floated and was quickly carried away by the current. "That is your mind," the master said. "You are not the leaf. You are the river. Thoughts arise, some pleasant, some painful, but none of them define you. You don't need to chase them or fight them. Just observe. With time, they pass. Always, when anger arises in thought form, don't cling to it. Don't try to analyze it to death. Just notice, a thought of anger is here. Then breathe and let it go. The less you identify with your thoughts, the less power they have over your emotions. This is why meditation is so powerful. Not because it silences the mind, but because it teaches you to see it clearly, to witness without judgment. And from that witnessing, peace naturally arises. You are not broken. Your mind is not your enemy. It's just been running wild without a watcher. Now you're learning to watch. In our culture, doing nothing is often seen as weakness. If someone attacks, we defend. If someone insults, we retaliate. But the Buddha offered another path, one that is harder, deeper, and infinitely more powerful, the art of non-reaction. There's a story about a farmer whose neighbor would constantly insult him, try to provoke him, and stir conflict. The farmer, however, never responded. One day, someone asked him, "Why do you let him walk all over you?" The farmer replied, "If a dog barks at you as you walk past a house, do you stop and bark back?" What looks like inaction is sometimes the highest form of wisdom. Not because you're afraid to respond, but because you've realized not everything deserves your energy. Doing nothing doesn't mean being passive. It means knowing that peace is more valuable than proving a point. It means understanding that not every fire needs your attention. Some are best left to burn out on their own. The next time someone tries to pull you into their storm, remember, you don't have to attend every battle you're invited to. Silence is not weakness. Stillness is not surrender. Sometimes doing nothing is the most powerful thing you can do. We all have someone in our lives who tests our patience. Someone whose words sting, whose presence drains us, or whose actions feel deliberately cruel. But Buddhism teaches us that those who cause the most pain are often those suffering the most themselves. The Buddha once said, "Hatred does not cease by hatred, but only by love. This is the eternal law." It's easy to be kind to those who are kind to us. But true compassion, the kind that transforms, is shown when we choose to soften our heart toward the one who seems the least deserving of it. There's a story of a disciple who told the Buddha he was tired of trying to love a cruel man in his village. The Buddha asked, "When someone offers you rotten fruit, do you have to eat it?" The disciple shook his head. "Then why eat the poison of his anger?" The Buddha asked, "Why not offer him something different? Your silence, your peace, your compassion." When someone is cruel, it's often because they've forgotten their own worth. They attack because they feel small. They lash out because they feel unseen. Your calmness isn't a reward for their behavior. It's a reflection of your own inner work. Compassion doesn't mean staying in harm's way. It means seeing clearly. You can keep your distance and still wish them healing. That wish, silent or spoken, protects your heart from being hardened by the world. Let me ask you this. Who in your life do you find hardest to forgive? And what would it feel like to no longer carry their weight in your chest? Share your thoughts in the comments. And if you haven't subscribed yet, I invite you to stay on this journey with us. Most suffering in life doesn't come from what happens. It comes from our attachment to how we wanted things to be. We hold tightly to people, to expectations, to outcomes, and then we suffer when they slip away. But the Buddha taught that all things are impermanent, and peace comes not from clinging, but from letting go. Imagine holding a handful of sand. If you keep your hand open, the sand rests gently in your palm. But if you close your fist tightly, the sand starts to slip through your fingers. The tighter you grip, the more you lose. There's a Buddhist story of a man who found a beautiful wild bird and kept it in a golden cage. He fed it well, cared for it deeply, but the bird stopped singing. One day, he opened the cage to clean it, and the bird flew away. At first, the man wept, but later, sitting quietly, he heard the bird's song from the treetops, louder and freer than ever before. True love doesn't cling. True peace doesn't control. Non-attachment is not coldness, it is spaciousness. It means allowing life to unfold as it must without grasping, without trying to freeze things that are meant to move. Ask yourself, what are you holding on to out of fear? And what might happen if you gently loosened your grip? If this reflection speaks to you, share it in the comments. And if you haven't subscribed yet, I invite you to do so. This journey is only growing deeper. In a world that rushes, that demands quick results and instant answers, patience feels like an old, forgotten language. But in Buddhism, patience is not weakness. It's one of the highest forms of strength. It is the quiet power of trusting the process, even when you can't see the outcome. The Buddha once sat under a tree for many days, unmoving, waiting for insight. People passed and mocked him, called him lazy, called him mad, but he stayed. And it was in that stillness that awakening came. There's a Zen story about a student who asked his master, "How long will it take me to reach enlightenment if I dedicate myself fully?" 10 years, the master replied. "And if I work even harder?" 20 years. Confused, the student asked, "Why longer?" The master smiled. "Because the more you chase it, the further away it becomes. Patience is knowing that everything ripens in its own time. The seed doesn't bloom when you shout at it. It blooms when the conditions are right, and your job is to keep tending the soil, to stay present, and to trust the process. Whatever you're working on, healing from, or waiting for, let it take the time it needs. Don't rush your becoming. Don't rush your peace. What's something in your life right now that's asking for more patience? I'd love to hear it in the comments. And if you're new here, consider subscribing. These teachings are here to walk beside you. The ego is like a shadow we forget is there. It whispers, "You're right," when we're not. It shouts, "They wronged you," when they didn't. It builds walls to protect us, but in doing so, it often isolates us. Buddhism teaches that the ego, this sense of me, mine, and I, is not our true self. It's a mask, a bundle of thoughts and stories we've clung to for so long that we mistake them for identity. But beyond the ego lies your real essence, spacious, aware, and undisturbed. A disciple once asked his teacher, "Why do I suffer so much from others' opinions?" The teacher took him to a still pond and dropped a pebble. The ripples distorted the reflection of the sky. "That is your mind," he said. "The ego reacts to every ripple. But the sky above, it remains unchanged. The less you live through the ego, the less disturbed you become by life's waves. You stop defending every opinion. You stop needing recognition. You become quieter, but more powerful. Letting go of ego doesn't mean losing yourself. It means discovering who you were before the world told you who to be. What story about yourself are you ready to release? Let's talk in the comments. And if this teaching moved something in you, make sure you subscribe. We're creating a space here for real transformation. What if peace isn't something you find after solving your problems, fixing your relationships, or achieving all your goals? What if peace is something you can access right here, right now, even while life is still messy, unfinished, and unpredictable? The Buddha taught that peace isn't in the circumstances. It's in the mind that meets those circumstances. A peaceful mind sees clearly, accepts fully, and acts wisely, not from fear, but from presence. There's a story of an old monk who was asked how he remained so peaceful despite the chaos of the world. He simply said, "I stopped arguing with reality." He didn't mean that he gave up. He meant that he learned to stop resisting what was already here.